Mhm. All right, and we have more people coming. Good. So welcome everyone to our March NYABJ panel. As everyone know, and if you don't know, we do a virtual panel every single month for NYABJ as well as an in-person event. So I'm really happy that you could join us tonight on Fat Tuesday. I hope you've had something delicious right before we kick things off. You know, Mardi Gras and also sports. March Madness is coming up and soon, couple of weeks, not like tomorrow or anything. So I want to thank everyone at CBS Sports for being a part of this and helping to put this together. I'm so honored to have so many amazing folks here from CBS Sports. We have Jasmine Winbish, David Cummings, Kiana, Justin Haley. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves because I don't want to butcher anyone's introductions. I'm really bad at butchering people's names. So, Kiana, will you go first?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. And thanks for having me. I'm Kiana Martin. I'm an on-air host, reporter, and anchor for CBS Sports, as well as their digital platform, CBS Sports HQ. I've been with CBS as a whole for now, maybe a little over 2 years now. Prior to my stops here with CBS, I made stops with MLB Network. I worked for the San Francisco 49ers for 5 years, the Denver Nuggets, the Kansas City Chiefs. So been in sports the entirety of my career, but loving what I do right now. Currently, primary role on the digital side with CBS Sports HQ, but also doing things for CBS Sports Network, especially as Bonita mentioned, March Madness literally around the corner. So on CBS Sports Network, inside college basketball, inside college football, as well as sidelining some games. So pleasure to meet you guys.
Thank you so much, David.
Hey, thank you, Benita. Hello, everyone. David Cummings, Senior Director for CBS Sports Race and Culture Unit. Background as a former sports writer, worked in several papers around the country. Here in New York, the New York Daily News, also in the Miami Herald. For the young folks back in the day, there was this magazine called The Source, which was the Bible of hip hop music. So I worked there, started a sports section there before taking a job at ESPN, the magazine. Worked there for 12 years and then moved over to the audio division. Eventually left ESPN and started my own media company. Got that, loved it, but then CBS came to me with this offer. So I've been here for 3 years now, since February of 2022. Oversee a group that pretty much is primarily responsible for making sure that if I'm doing my job, you will not notice. So it's keeping people in check, making sure we have a accurate and also diverse representation. So it's been pretty cool. I enjoy myself and enjoying so far the job.
That's awesome. I work very closely with you. I'm also at the CBS News Race and Culture Unit, so really happy that you're able to join us. Jasmine?
Hi everyone. I'm Jasmine Wimbish. I cover the NBA for CBSSports.com, so I'm a writer for the website. I've been with the company since 2019. Prior to that, I had stops at USA Today Sports. I wrote for Fansided.com and did video content there as well. I write everything from feature-length stories, important news stories, columns. I go to NBA games regularly, and write off of those. So that's mine in a very short biography.
Looking forward to hearing all about it and talking all about it. Justin, last but not least.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Justin Haley. I'm an associate director at CBS Sports. Wow. In August, it'll be my 15th year working at CBS, which is kind of wild. But mainly what I do is remote and studio production. So I'll be either traveling from week to week, covering NFL, NCAA men's basketball, or PGA golf. Um, it's a high intensity job. It's all live television, which makes it fun, and a little bit scary at the same time. But it's a great team to work with, and I've been proud to work numerous Super Bowls, men's Final Fours, Masters championships, PGA championships. So yeah, it's been a fun ride.
That's amazing. We're looking forward to talking all about that. And I love an adrenaline rush. I feel like that's why I work in news because if I'm not like feeling a little freaked out and nervous, like I'm on a roller coaster, I'm like, what am I even doing? Like, what is my day job like? So
For
Kiana,
sure.
we're gonna jump right into these questions. As an on-air reporter, what was your journey? How did you get to where you are now?
Well, to start things off, I have to ask Bonita, how long-winded can I be? Because it's a long journey to get to where I am right now. But um, I'll make a really long story short. I actually went to school for sports marketing. I really wanted to work with athletes and their brands and developing them. And probably my senior year of schooling, that's when I was like, you know what? I see all of these women just dominating this sports realm. Like, well, how come I can't do that? So to make a very long story short, ended up just investing in myself and taking my own courses because I was not paying for another year of school. It's a little too expensive, but invested in myself, took classes, took courses, internships, things of that nature. And I got my first big opportunity, probably, it wasn't right out of college, I'll tell you that much, but probably about 4 to 5 years later. And that was with the Kansas City Chiefs. It was an internship. I'm from Los Angeles. I knew nobody in Kansas City. I packed up my things. It was a non-paid internship. And that's why I say investing in yourself. But took that leap of faith and took that opportunity, and that snowballed into something else and something else and something else. And ended up becoming the senior team reporter for the San Francisco 49ers. And I was there for 2 Super Bowl trips. And then also made my way to MLB Network and now to CBS Sports. But that's the kind of it's a really long-winded story, but I think the point of it is just I felt like I was a little bit behind when other people studied broadcast journalism. They made those connections with their professors, their classmates, and things like that. So I kind of had to take an elongated route, but ultimately just investing in myself to get to where I wanted to be.
You.
I love that. And that's so important for everyone here is to invest in yourself and to know that you have it in you to do it and have that drive. So David, you mentioned you were at the Source, that you did some print stuff. You were at ESPN Digital, the magazine you mentioned. So how did you
Mhm.
make the transition over to CBS Sports where you are?
Uh, Initially, it was scary going from, magazine editing to television and not really understanding the control room, the sets. So literally, I probably spent the first 6, 7 months just absorbing TV lingo and getting an understanding of what it's like. So I probably spent every Saturday and Sunday while Justin was out enjoying, trips on the road. I was in the studio just absorbing TV production. And so now I'm much more comfortable. So it was not what skills did transfer were editorial, facts, news judgment. Those were the things that, really, which I was really brought here for, to help with the news team grow and make sure that, when we go to break, that we're not always showing the same faces because, we have diversity in the audience and meeting with the directors and the camera crew. So it went from like creating stories to making sure that our storytelling reflected what we wanted at CBS Sports at the time. So I think it was the initial was daunting going from print background to television. But now, I feel like I'm much more comfortable and I'm really happy about it because I'm learning this medium has been, I've been in the business a long time. So when you get into something new, it gives you some excitement and you feel like, not every day is different again. So it's been pretty cool.
Thank you for sharing that. Jasmine, how about you? Have you always been in sports journalism? I know that right now you're covering the NBA and doing lots of writing for our.com, but how did you get to where you are?
Yeah, so I've always been involved in sports journalism. I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a sports journalist. In high school, my high school had a journalism class, so I kind of got started really young. And then when I got to college, I immediately joined my college's newspaper, writing for the sports department. And then my first job out of college, I went to undergrad, and then I went and got my master's at University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, by the way. And after that, my first job was at fansided.com. And it was actually as a video content writer. And so I was writing scripts for our video team, doing some voiceover work. And I didn't really get to do a lot of writing, but I did get to kind of sharpen other skills that I might not have done in college, like doing things in front of the camera, doing podcast work, doing voiceovers, kind of doing all that kind of stuff. And then I got an opportunity at CBS Sports where I applied for our trending team, which is basically our, news hit team. They cover a wide variety of sports. I didn't get that job, but through my interview process, one of the people interviewing me said that I see that you have a very strong interest in the NBA. We might have a job opening in a couple of months. So maybe down the line. And I said, okay. And so a couple months later, I interviewed for that job, got it. But it was a contracted position. So they basically said, you're on a 1 year trial and we'll see where it goes. And I've been here since 2019. So it's been going well so far. Thank you.
Love that. Good for you. That's amazing. So Justin, you start your career doing PR. You were with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So how did you make the transition to what you're doing now?
Um, huh. Yeah, well, Kiana said like I don't want to be long-winded. I don't want to be long-winded either, but I mean, I guess my sports journey kind of started when I was 16. My mom went to school at Penn State just like me, and she told me like, "Hey, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't know." She was like, "Well, what do you like?" And I was like, "I like sports." She was like, "Well, you're not going to college to play ball. Like, you 5'9". So, yeah, my mom is my biggest critic and supporter at the same time. But I was like, I like writing. And she was like, well, do you think you want to be a sports writer? And I said, maybe. So she pulled strings and got me into a Philadelphia chapter of NABJ to talk to Stephen A. Smith, who was, before he was screaming on television all the time, he was a really good columnist and one of my favorites in Philly. And I talked to him for about 15 to 20 minutes, and he explained to me like how you have to start off writing, and that you might wind up in Montana uh, covering, high school football, softball, baseball, so on and so forth. And so I went to school to become a writer, but I found more passion into radio and talk radio. And that was my first internship at Sirius. And they offered me a job after I graduated from college, but then had to rescind it once they merged with XM Radio. And so then I was kind of, like just down on the dumps. So um, just by happenstance, I was going to a job fair at Howard, and my uncle's best friend, who I didn't know worked in sports TV, saw me and said, like, "Hey, where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to a job fair." He said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "Anything in sports." So he said, "Once you're done with the job fair, come down to my office." I said, "Where do you work?" He said, "I work at PTI." I was like, pardon the interruption? And he was like, yeah. I was like, I'll just go there. And he was like, no, go to the job fair first. So I try to get done a job fair because I know he told me they were taping at like 3:30. So I, get to run around the whole time. And I, head back down there to PTI, meet Michael Wilbon, Tony Kornheiser, so on and so forth. And I didn't know, but he told me he was a TD. I had no clue what that was, but like that's a big wig. He's a technical director. And he introduced me to his associate director, who basically got me an interview, just got my foot in the door with CBS. So I initially interviewed with CBS Sports. They told me I didn't have enough experience. I kind of went back with my tail between my legs, and just by happenstance, somebody who was interning with the Steelers just got a recent job and got hired, and so they were kind of like trying to find anybody. So um, I went to Pittsburgh, interviewed, and as I was leaving, they called and said, "You're hired, but you got to start next week." So I'm calling up all my frat brothers, like who live in the Pittsburgh area, like, can I stay with anybody? I finally get one person, and I worked that job hard for a year, and I was the first person in the building. Like I can attest to that. And Mike Tomlin, he was always like the second person, or even before me. And so every time he saw me, he's like, "Justin's always got work." And I was like, "That's right, coach." So after my internship ended, he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, I think I want to go back to CBS, but I don't know if I have enough experience yet. And he said, "Well, like let me try to figure it out." So the next day, I go to my desk, and it's just a pile of letters, and they're all letters of recommendation for Mike Tomlin. And I go to coach, and I'm just like, "Coach, you didn't have to do that." He was like, "I told you I got you." So I came back to CBS with a letter of recommendation from Mike Tomlin. So they couldn't say no. And that's basically how I got here. So yeah.
Drop the mic.
Even
Yeah.
yeah, even though you don't get your initial goal, I always say just anything is just like a stepping stone. So yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's such a great story.
I'm sorry I was
So,
so long-winded. I try to
oh
be
no,
quick.
this is what it's all about. We're sharing our stories. People need to hear them. People need to know that there's hope there, there's a way.
For sure.
So for Kiana, can you share more about the research that goes into all the behind the scenes stuff? People see you on air, they see you reporting, but what goes on behind the scenes to get you there?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I feel like in this industry, you have to be an expert at everything that you are covering because people, especially, and I'll say being a woman and being a woman of color, people are always ready and quick to, prove that you're wrong or, kind of just attack you in some kind of shape, form, or fashion. So it's like when I enter whatever it might be, whether it is I'm doing an on-air interview for HQ and I'm talking to one of our analysts, I want to make sure that if I'm talking about Kyrie Irving and him now being out for the season, I want to be full no. Let's know his numbers of his contract. Let's know, what his injury history would be. Things like that, I just want to be prepared for. Also, it's also a lot different when you're sidelining a game. I'd like to say like I'm kind of almost like a creep when it comes to preparation because I want to know the players that I am covering. And I feel like one thing that makes my role very unique, you have your play-by-play, you have your color announcers, but what's something that I would add to a broadcast? And I think one thing that makes a sideline reporter special is that you're doing a bit of the storytelling. Anybody can tell you somebody's averages, how many triple doubles they've had, how many touchdowns they've caught last season. But do you know that this guy is actually studying to be a doctor because his mother suffered from cancer and she's a cancer survivor. So he's made it his goal to make sure that he finishes school and does this for his family. Knowing those little stories and being able to share that in a broadcast, I think is probably my favorite part of my job. So when I'm studying, I kid you not, I have a notebook, I have, a picture of the guy. I have where he's from. I have notes on his story. And not every story gets to be shared during a broadcast. You have such little time, but I like to make sure that I'm over prepared rather than under prepared. And that goes for any sideline, any show, whatever it is I do, because people are looking to you for accuracy, especially in all of our roles. So making sure I'm on top of that, I think that's a very large piece of my job. I probably spend, say I have a game this weekend, so I probably 2 weeks worth of studying just to prepare for one game that I might speak for a total of 2.5 minutes.
Mm.
That's important. And that goes for all areas of covering sports and news.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I thought I was done with studying after school, but it doesn't quite stop.
Yeah,
There you
it's
go.
even more. So, David, you do a lot of long form pieces and vignettes and feature pieces. How do you share your creative process, the pitching, the getting it together, the shooting it? Like what goes into creating one of those?
Yeah, so before that, Justin, I got to tell you, um, so I worked at the Daily News with Stephen A. I
Mhm.
was covering high schools and I was covering college.
Yeah.
And I turned down a job in Philly. And guess who took it?
Stephen A.
Stephen A.
Yeah.
And he has not changed since then.
Yeah,
Talk about someone who truly put the work in. I mean,
for
his
sure.
goal has been to where he is right now. So, and I just say that as a digress to say that if you really want something,
Mhm.
you can achieve it. And
Yeah.
he is a pure example of that. Just in terms of, I've there's so much respect for him for what he does. But to your question, um, I think when as far as what we do, I learned a lot from a coworker named Sarah Kazadi, who is a feature producer here. And the first thing she required, and I've learned from it, is a story has to have a beginning, middle, and end, right? And so if you could structure that story properly, the rest of it sort of falls in place. And so, it's research. Really have to dig in and get the research on the subjects and the topic. to make sure that, you have that locked in. Then, who's the audience, right? Knowing who is the audience that you're producing this piece for. Um, and then how you're going to shoot it, or film it, I should say. I try not to use the word shoot. How you're going to film it. Because, some stories will require, there's upbeat stories and there's a way that, the stories that you do that are a little more serious. You take all of that in, and one of the things I think is most important is collaborating with others to make sure that, yes, you may have your vision that you don't want to give up, but it says something when you get others to provide or give you some advice or thoughts that can kind of like open it up. So I think you have to be very collaborative, and that's the main thing. So that's what I would say is very important to be able to, first of all, that middle, I mean, beginning, middle, and end. So your story structure's there. Be open to others collaborating with you, but at the end of the day, figuring out what is your vision and locking in on that because you want it. Because at the end of the day, when you're creating it, it is you. So I think those are kind of like the things that we've done. I've learned a lot, especially in television, on the lighting. All of these things can really tell a story in a way that when you're just sitting back thinking about it, that can create a visual, because television is a visual medium, so you want to make sure that the visuals are on point. So that's kind of like the checkpoints that I go through when producers are pitching stories. And I think if you like follow that, you'll be able to, turn in pieces long or short. I mean, because you do a piece that's 5 minutes. We've done a minute and we've done a 60-minute doc. And through all of those pieces at all of those different timestamps, we followed that same structure.
Great. Jasmine, I'm going to send it right up to you. Similar question, but on the digital side, on the writing side, how do you bring life to your writing? What tips can you give to our young writers who want to give more than just the score, but really make people feel like they're at the game?
Yeah, I think now more than ever, game stories in general are just kind of very antiquated and outdated. Anybody can look at their phone and see what the final score of a game is. And so me covering the NBA on a national level, when I go to games, it's very intentional. So like Kiana said, I'm spending 2 weeks researching for one game that I'm going to. And it might be about a specific trend on whatever team's coming to Chicago. It might be on a specific player. Focusing less on what's in the box score and more on the players on the team, what's happening around them, that those kind of details are really important, and something that even when I was in college, it was, it's very easy to just write this team won, this team, this, that's very monotonous and not really something anybody wants to read. But I spent a lot of time trying to come up with ideas about different things that maybe other people in the league aren't covering, or maybe something that somebody mentioned in a podcast that I, might think differently about or flesh it out a bit more. So I think looking at smaller details like that, looking at stats and seeing what are weird things that jump out in that regard that can be turned into a big numbers piece. There's so many things you can pull from that I think lend itself to writing really well-formed, fleshed out features or columns or things that go beyond just like writing a basic game story. So.
Justin, how about you explain more about your job? So you're an associate producer and associate director. What all does that mean? What do you do?
It means so much. Again, I don't want to be long-winded, but basically, there for sports television and all television, there's a producer and director. They both are kind of one. One is the flesh out the storyline, which is a producer, and then the director kind of just paints the picture of what's going on. So I'm basically their eyes and ears, just right behind them. So in my current role right now, I'm basically just getting back and forth from break. So in a natural time when we can go to commercial, I'm counting to commercial, making sure we get back to commercial. I know everybody's probably seen a sports game where if you see color bars or if like you see black on the television, that's my job to make sure that that doesn't happen with another associate director back in New York or back in LA. Also making sure the money's right. So I deal with commercials, I deal with sales items, promos, so on and so forth, and just making sure that it's aesthetically pleasing. So doing special After Effects projects, but also like just making sure that the producer and the director, um, I let them do their jobs, but just to kind of be like the second set of eyes and ears of, hey, I think we should do this here, or if they think that we should do something, I might tell them like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, or maybe we should wait on that. So basically, just helping the storyline flow and also like the smooth transition of a football or basketball game go as well.
And I know you mentioned you traveled a bit too. So do you travel
Mhm.
from game to game? Can you get into
Yeah,
that a little
so
bit?
basically my work consists of I work from Tuesday to Sunday for a regular NFL game. So Tuesday we have all of our meetings. Wednesday I'm basically helping compile clips for editing. Thursday is going to be our edit day. Friday is our travel day. Saturday is the set day where we go to the trucks, make sure everything's working properly, and then Sunday we get to watch a game and help produce it. And then hopefully Sunday we get to fly home, or Monday morning we fly home. And that's kind of like my rest day, but it's also like my next preparation for the next week. So it's kind of a 6.5 days day a week schedule where it's just constantly flowing. But um, I like to call I like to call the NFL like not in a sense, but it's water torture. Like it's a drop on your head every week where you know what's gonna happen. You know what you have to do. Everything's set in stone. And the NFL players are kind of the same too. They have like a regiment, and it's just like a set and standard of it's like, okay, I have to do this all this day. Like they have practice reports where they practice like Wednesday, Thursday, and Fridays their walkthrough. It's kind of the same regimented schedule for us. So yeah.
Got it. That's good to, that's a long week.
Yeah, I know. And I did the London games this year. So I was in London for 3 straight weeks, and then I did a game in Germany. So it was just like it was a long travel year as well as like a long football year. But it was fun. Going to new places and experiencing things, especially with going to new states and whatnot. So yeah.
And all the travel points. That's even better.
Yes,
There you
all the travel points.
go.
Yeah, they work out a lot.
So Kiana, we have a lot of people who want to be on air. They are getting their reels together. Can you give us some do's and don'ts for reels and for just applying for on-air positions?
Yeah, probably my biggest piece of advice would be to keep it concise. I know we want to put all of our work onto one reel, but you got to think the people that are watching, they're busy. Time is money. They have other work to do. They're looking at other things. So keeping things concise, keeping your best work first. So that's the first thing that the employer, whoever you're sending your work to, that's the first thing that they see. Also, you want to show versatility. If you do anchoring, you want to show that you can do that, but you can also do sideline reporting. You also can host podcasts, showing that you're kind of well-rounded in the realm that you want to be in, I think is extremely important. And also, I know we're in like the day and age that like effects are like the thing to do. It's not TikTok. You don't need the transitions. You don't need all the special effects. Keeping it concise, getting straight to the point, putting your strongest work at the beginning, I think is the most important keys to making sure your reels get seen and they get the proper sight that they deserve.
That's
Mm.
good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see here. I want to talk about building relationships. I know this is something you guys all probably do because you're all talking to different sports teams and sports players. But David, I'm going to send it over to you and ask you, how do you build those relationships with the different teams, different players, their PR? How do you make it happen?
Um, so one of the things I learned from Mike Bill Wilbong of all people was you don't always have to have a recorder or notebook when you're going to talk to people. Just building a conversation with them, especially athletes, but even with the PR people, it doesn't don't make everything always about work. That way you kind of get to know them, they get to know you, and you build a connection and a relationship, because everyone's not going to some are, and also judging how people are. Some people are just straight, hey, this is what I do, this is what I want. But I think what's very important is in terms of building relationships is getting to know someone, and then you'll find you might have some common things that you both enjoy or about, and just really be personable. That to me is where I at least built my best sources, because then there's over time, you two, you become friends. So I think it's very important that, as a reporter, that you also disarm the subject to know that you're also a person too. And you're not always going after information. Sometimes you just want to say, hey, what's up, man? Did you see this movie, or what this show is, some music, finding that commonality that can basically start a friendship. But I have a question for Kiana, because you hit it on the nerve, because when I'm at NABJ and I'm talking to people who want to be on air, what do you suggest is the time when you say keeping it brief? How much time should, because reels, oh my gosh, they could like turn you off,
Yeah,
So
no.
really, what is a good time? What do you think is that sweet spot?
That's a really good question because someone sent me their video not too long ago and they're like, do you mind just looking at it? And it was 8 minutes long. I was like, this is a Netflix series. Like, I don't have that kind of time. But in all honesty, I think if you can somehow get your strongest work, and you don't need the full, if you do an interview with, I don't know, you did a sit down with one of your star players, you don't need that person's response. We need to hear you. We want to see your personality. So I would keep it to just your question. You can give the first 3 seconds of their answer and then go on to another video. So if you can keep that total reel between 1 to, I think, 2.5 minutes, I think that's really your sweet spot right there. But then also, I'm going to circle this right back to what David said about, don't always, as a reporter, not always coming with a notepad in your hand or a recorder. And someone actually recently mentioned this to me, and it was just in casual conversation. And they were just like, it's about being able to build that trust with you and another person. And sometimes, even if, say, you are going for work and you want to get some insight, sometimes you'll get more of an authentic response from somebody if you're not there, like, hey, here's a microphone in your face, here's a recorder, I'm writing down everything you're saying. Sometimes those conversations can create natural responses where you get a little bit more unfiltered. You can get somebody a little more relaxed. So I really liked what he said there, and I just wanted to build upon that because someone actually recently brought that up, and I was like, that makes so much more sense. If someone had a camera or a microphone in my face all the time, I'd probably be a little bit more guarded as well.
Completely agree. Those are good nuggets. That was really good. And 1.5 to 2 minutes seems so short to me because I've sat and watched reels at NABJ, and all of them are around like I don't know, 10 minutes it feels like. So
Yeah.
that I like that though. Then we can watch more reels if they're only 2 minutes. That's so much better. Good tips. I like that. So Jasmine, I'm sure you cover so many games, and maybe there's some games that you're unable to attend. What do you do? Like, what's your process like for a game that you can't attend or you can't maybe watch live at the time in order to write your report on that or write your piece on that game?
In that case, I'm trying to consume as much content as possible around that game. That means, listening to the post-game interviews, reading who else was at the game, what they wrote about, listening to podcasts. And I'm in a fortunate position where I can go back and watch, games through NBA League Pass. So if I can, I'll scrub through 5 minutes in each quarter and try and get a full picture of that game. Because that does happen, especially, I go to games, but I also work on shifts here at CBS Sports. So if I'm working a night shift, I'm usually doing it at home and I'm on from 6 to 2 a.m. And there's about 15 games on at one time, and I'm just one person. So I might only be able to watch 2, 3 games in the span of a night. And there might be a game winner in one of the games that I didn't watch. And so I have to go back and read comments and read, articles and try and put something together as quick as possible. But it's also just on top of that, making sure that you're staying well informed about the league as a whole, because it can be very easy to kind of get lost. And there's so many teams, there's so much going on that it's very difficult to kind of have your pulse on everything, but trying to listen to as much content via podcasts or something on TV or reading as many articles as you can help you write those stories a lot quicker when that does happen.
Thank you. So I'm going to do this question. These next couple of questions are for everyone. We've kind of touched on NABJ and mentorship and networking. So I just want to do a round robin of like, how do you find mentorship or programs that you know of that are really good that have helped you in finding those early career jobs or just helping you move to the next, step of things. So I will start with Kiana if you want to go first on just any of those networking things that have helped you in your career.
Yeah, absolutely. I know right now there's a lot of opportunities, especially for actually women and men of color, especially when it comes to on-air reporting, writing, things of that nature. I didn't really have that. I'm not going to date myself, but there wasn't really that many opportunities like that when I was coming out of college. And honestly, the biggest thing for me was finding that mentor and somebody that was there to kind of help push me and kind of help connect dots for me. And it happened to be the guy that hired me back when I was with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was there, senior reporter BJ Kissel, and he honestly, I owe a lot to him. And even to this day, we still talk. He's no longer in the same industry as I am, but still very well connected. He was the team reporter for, I think, maybe about 15 years. So I think finding those people that can, champion for you, I think that's extremely and incredibly important. And I know a lot of times, and especially I know this is NABJ, and it's always great to have someone that looks like you to help you, but also there's a lot of allies as well out there. So finding those people that can help open doors for you, help make connections, even if you just have questions about your industry, finding those people, I think that's fantastic.
David?
Listen, you've got four people on here that you should definitely follow up with because, if you want somebody to help you, you got to make sure they know you're asking for help. The closed mouths don't get fed. And so that's kind of like for me, being willing to talk to anyone and just let them know what you're interested in because we're always willing to help out. I will tell you right now, we hire BAs at CBS Sports every year. And the process starts in like May or June. So if anybody's into production or want to get to follow the area that Justin is in, I'm always looking for people who look like me because those are positions that really impact television and they're available. I mean, every year we hire between 8 to 10 BAs. And so if anyone, if you know of anyone, please send them my way because I want to make sure that those pools are diverse. And so I flipped that back to say one of the reasons I do that is because there was someone who always did that for me. I can name names like Bill Roden, Dave Roberts at ESPN, Leon Carter, who's at The Athletic now. These are guys who, when I was young and coming up, they reached out not just to me, and those connections were at NABJ, but also at events. If you go into an event and you see somebody, in my case, I will be open about this, who looks like me. I walked up to him and say, "Hey, I'm David Cummings. How are you? I work with such and such." And again, building a relationship, that type of networking goes a long way in terms of, where you are. Now, I'll be honest with you. I've been in the business since 1990, and the folks like Roden and them, they raised me. And so that's why I always, look back. So I would say to you, don't be afraid to go up to anyone in the industry, ask them, tell them what you want, what you're interested in, because we all have connections, and so you never know who who I may know. Just like Kiana just referred to the young man with the Chiefs TV. We are all connected, and we're all trying to help each other. So it's very important that when you're looking for someone to guide you or give you advice, that you just go straight to them and ask. So don't be afraid. And so, a long time ago, I do a lot of panels, and I do the same thing. I say, "Hey, here's my email address," and there might be 50 to 100 people. Two people may reach out to me. So when folks offer you up their information, follow up with them. That's the first step, is to really follow up. And it doesn't have to be anything major. Just, "Hey, I saw you there. Just wanted to remind you." And then send them a note 2 or 3 weeks later. "Hey, can you check this out?" Because we are busy, but be aggressive and you'll find that, someone's going to hit.
Those are very good tips. Thank you for sharing those. Jasmine, yours?
I think both of you guys kind of covered all the bases on that one. But another thing that I will say is for me, something that was really instrumental when I was in college was really connecting with my professors because they were once professionals in the field that I wanted to work in. And so I had two professors that were really instrumental in forming me as a journalist and kind of pushing me to do things, get out of my comfort zone. Because I think one of the most important things for journalists is being multifaceted today, because you need to know how to write, you need to know how to be on TV, how to podcast, how to do a radio hit, all of those things. And those are things when I got into college, I was like, I just want to write. I don't want to do anything else. But my one of my professors, Rory Faust at Northern Arizona University, he was like, you need to do everything else so that when you leave here, you can go and do all of those things because a lot of the times companies are looking for somebody who can write and be in front of the camera and do radio and do podcasts. So I think, if you are in college, if anybody on this chat and this call is in college, make sure that you are connecting with those professors and keep in contact with them because I still do. And I ask them for advice and they've helped me and they still have connections in the industry. And so I think that's another area that you can pull from for your career.
I completely agree with that. Stay in touch with those professors. There's professors that I still talk to, and it's amazing. It's Justin. So, how about you?
Yeah, I think everybody said almost everything. One suggestion I will say as well is normally like if I meet somebody who I feel like can be a mentor, and we hit it off on something that's a good topic that we both like, I might recommend them a book, or gift them a book, or just just shoot it to them. It's like it's like it means a lot to people. Like if you send them something like a small token, just of appreciation, just for their time, or whatever. But what I will say as far as networking is a lot of people don't network across too. Um, Congratulate your peers when they do stuff. If your peers are successful, like tell them like what you like about it, because you never know which one of you guys might make it, and then they'll bring you up. So I'll always champion young people to network across because sometimes networking up to people who are more famous than you, more popular, yada yada, can be intimidating. But if you see somebody who's like-minded like you, collaborate with them, do stuff. It's not always a competition. There's so much in sports that you could do, and especially if you guys are like-minded, like do something together, even if it's freelance or out of your own time. So yeah, for sure, network across because you never know who can make it. So.
Good. I'm going to ask Kiana and Justin this next one because you guys have mentioned, maybe the others can jump into. You've mentioned working with a team before you worked with CBS Sports. So can you talk about those kind of jobs, applying for those jobs, and maybe what the differences are in working with the team specifically, and then moving over toward a network situation? Kiana, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Um, I feel like, well, one, working for a team, I feel like it's vastly different than working for a network because your sole focus is kind of on that team. And how I know about what's going on is who they're playing that next week. That's how I know what's going on with the Steelers, how I know what's going on with the Chiefs, so on and so forth. But also being in-house with a team is how I think I built my network, because you got to think about coaching trees. They're, as we talk about, just like being in sports and how you can network like that, the same kind of goes when it comes to coaching trees. So I was with the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan's coaching tree. If I need something right now, well, two got fired. If I needed something from the Jets earlier in the year, I would be able to reach out to Robert Saleh. If right now Deebo Samuel just went to the Commanders and I'm like, hey, we want to get in touch with Adam Peters, I know him. I spent 5 years with him in the Bay Area. And that's one thing that I'm very, very grateful for. Working in-house with the team is being able to build those relationships with the staff, with the players. But I think now it's much more wide open being with CBS Sports, because especially on the HQ side, because I'm now doing football, I'm doing basketball, college football, golf, I'm doing literally everything. So it's kind of being a master of all things rather than being hyper focused on a franchise club.
Yeah, I'll just say the same thing. When I worked in PR, like my very first job was wake up at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning and just scour the internet for like all stories on the Steelers, and then give it to the owner, give it to PR, give it to everybody. And so like it's basically just finding out everything that everybody said about the team. There's nothing else more than the team, or reaching out to community relations of, if this player wants to flesh out a story. So it's much more like internal when it comes to that. But yeah, for CBS, like Kiana said, like I'm covering everything, and you get to kind of be more creative. But I'm sure that like more more now, like they have their own staffs where they make their own content now, rather than when I was working with them in 2010. It wasn't like a social media where like the Steelers had their Twitter account. So I'm sure that they can be much more creative, but it just seemed like like you were working for the team and just trying to find out as much information of the team, and also give out the information that you wanted for the team. But yeah, like Kiana said, like she could reach out to any coach. Obviously, like I told you guys, like coach gave me a letter of recommendation. Like if you work hard, you do your job well, like everything, like the world is your oyster. So for sure.
Love that. So we're
Actually,
getting
I want to piggyback on that actually, because when you told the story about Mike Tomlin, it reminded me,
Mhm.
no one wrote a letter of recommendation for me, but so that's fantastic. But when I was with Kansas City, then their general manager, John Dorsey, when I left mid-season, it was in the middle of the season in October, to go to the Denver Nuggets, I got a random call on like a random Tuesday. And the general manager of the Kansas City Chiefs called my phone and he was just like, I heard you left. And I was like, oh God, am I in trouble? And he was like, I just want to let you know that you were an intern, but you were so professional. And he's like, we enjoyed having you around. And he was just like, I will be following your career. And he just how proud of me he was. And I'm like, I was just an intern. I didn't even know he knew I existed. But it just goes to show those relationships and how important and how special they really are, and just continue to nourish those.
For sure.
sharing that. So we have some questions here in the chat. One of them is, how do you keep your passion going in sports journalism? How do you combat burnout? Jasmine, you want to answer that one?
Well, that's a good question. Combating burnout. I think that's a really good question, because for the NBA season, it's like 82 games long. So like right now, I'm like, when do the playoffs start? But I think that, as every new season approaches, there's always something that always gets me excited. It's like when the season ends, and then the draft, and then free agency, and then, you have the lull of summer. And then right around September, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the season to start. And so I think it's just something for me personally, I'm just really passionate about like basketball and the NBA specifically. Like it's something that I grew up watching. Like my brother played professionally overseas. Like it's been in my life like forever. So it's something that it ebbs and flows, and there's times, especially like in the December, January portion of the season, where I'm just kind of like, oh, I'm ready for like the playoffs or whatever. But I always end up finding something like this season, for instance, Luka Doncic gets traded. That creates a whole new level of interest for the league. So that is kind of what's keeping me going for the rest of the season. So it's always something that happens in the NBA. And the NBA especially it's a very crazy league to cover. So
Good one. This next question, it's a bit lengthy, but I'm gonna read it. For a writer who's still in college and ended up switching majors recently to journalism and sports communication and media, what recommendations would you have in terms of steps to take while I'm still in college and to start getting my experience, getting my foot in the door with internships, especially in the case of not having as much experience as the next person or someone who's been in the major all 4 years? Um, does anyone, David, would you like to take that one maybe?
Yeah, so first thing is if you got a school paper, get in there. If the school has a PR department, volunteer. Because PR is writing, and just advocate for yourself. But those are the first two steps I would take, and because then you're in the business. I'm sure by now you've taken the big basic classes, but it's showing that extra oomph on your own of working literally in PR. When I was in college, I we didn't we well we had a newspaper, but it wasn't like it was a monthly. So one of my professors got me a job with the Journal Constitution. So I was covering high school sports. But at the same time, I took a job with the SCLC's PR department. So I was writing, I was always writing. So I think for someone in your position, if this is your passion, you know, go to your professor, ask questions. I think Kiana said that earlier, or Jasmine said that earlier, and do your best to look at the school. Like, where can you work in the school? When I say work, meaning volunteer. You know, if this is does that's going to catch you up because you're going to start writing things for the PR department. You know, getting in with the newspaper itself, you just want to work there so you're involved. So over time, you might be able to do something for that paper. So I don't know what school you're at, but that's just the first things that I would say you do is to get your foot in the door there. Because if you're looking for an internship, you know, it's a competitive field. So if I look at your resume and I don't see those things, that's gonna like throw me off. But if I see that, you know, yo, you work for the PR in PR, all right, great. You work for the school paper. Oh, all right, that's the experience that you needed. If in fact you are looking to get into journalism as a writer. So if you're looking to do TV, same thing. Go for the TV station, you know, local TV stations, you'd be surprised. They will take you on free work, free, you know, someone who's going to help and being a grunt, do the grunt work, but you're getting that experience, which then will show somebody, you know, that you have the ability and you want to do it. I mean, that you're right now at that stage, it's really showing people your hunger.
I'll
I
also, oh, no,
okay.
Jasmine. No. Mm-mm.
The other thing I wanted to add to that about the writing portion of it is also look for blogs online that you can write for because me personally, I started writing at fansided.com as a college student and I got my first job out of college at Fansided. SB Nation, same thing. They have like 500 team sites that you can go and write for. Fansided has a similar model. So you can always reach out. They have it on their website, and that's an easy way to get clips and just kind of hone your writing skills while covering sports that you might care even more about because it's a team that you already like watching in general. So,
And then also, I'll just add one more thing. Going back to how I said, I felt like I was already behind the eight ball when I got into sports since my degree was in broadcast journalism. The one of the main reasons I ended up getting my first internship with the Chiefs, the guy told me when he looked at my resume, I didn't have experience of working with the team or anything like that. But he said, I created my own sports blog. I won't tell you the names. I don't want anyone to Google it because it's so terrible right now. But at that time in my life, I was like, okay, well, there's nothing that I can really do. So how about I create it myself? I created my own lane. So therefore I practiced my own writing. I would literally sit and watch a game and write a recap on it and put it on my own blog site. I went to like this little cheap fabric store, got a green screen, stood in front of it with my computer and had crappy quality. And I talked to the camera. And because I kind of created my own lane, he saw that and said, the fact that you took initiative, that wasn't there for you, but you made it happen. He's like, that's the kind of person I want to work with me. So you just want to get experience, I would say even starting your own vlog, whatever that might be, could be another way that you're also getting practice, but also something that shows that you're working on your craft.
I'm just going to say, as NYABJ, we do have a member-run news magazine where we accept members who can write. They can pitch their stories. You can write stories. You can be a copy editor. And I'm putting that information in the chat, but it's nyabjpulse.com. And that's the perk of being a member of NYABJ is that we offer these resources for our members and for those students and everyone else. And I'm seeing inside of this Zoom that we're in, Tariq, shout out to him. He is one of our students who also writes for NYABJ Pulse. And there are a couple other ones in here who write for us too. So another question that we have is, what is one of the best moments so far of your career? Justin, do you want to share your moment?
Um, Probably doing multiple Super Bowls, I would say. Um, yeah, that's probably my dream. Also winning an Emmy, I would say, for my first Super Bowl. It's something that like you don't even think about when you're a kid. Um, and I know like my parents are like super proud of that. So I would say that covering the Super Bowl and winning an Emmy for it. So yeah, for sure.
David, you want to share yours?
Um, this there's so many. I would say the highlight of my career um would be interviewing Mike Tyson and writing that story when he got out of jail and being the first to do it and Sunday Daily News front page story, Tyson speaks. Because there was a lot of work that went into that. And this is when Tyson was probably the, biggest name out there. So career-wise, that would be the highlight that sticks out. Because like Justin said, Super Bowls, All-Star games, all those things, but that was something I did on my own, well, as a reporter. So yeah, that would be my highlight.
Wait, Dave, one question for you. You ever give somebody 5 mics in the source?
No, I wasn't on that side. Started the
Okay.
sports section.
All right. Okay. All
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
But 5 mics, listen, if you got 5 mics, you were platinum.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Automatic. Yes. Those were some
We're
good
dating
times.
ourselves here, guys.
Well, I'm the only one here with reading glasses on, so trust me.
Jasmine, same question.
I have two. One was covering my first NBA All-Star game. It was here in Chicago in 2020, which was literally a month before COVID happened. But it was also right after Kobe Bryant had passed. And the emotion that was surrounding that one was just amazing. And it was probably the last good NBA All-Star game that we've had. Like the guys were actually like competing, like the dunk contest was great. And it being here in Chicago was just like an amazing experience. And then my other one would be I guess that was the same year. It was also in 2020, when the NBA shut down because of COVID, and then they reopened in the Orlando bubble. And then the Milwaukee Bucks decided to protest and not play due to the deaths of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor. Everybody was covering that story from so many different angles, and I was trying to figure out how to write a story for it. And I got to interview Craig Hodges, who used to play for the Chicago Bulls, was three-point champion, activist during his playing career. Him and I talked on the phone for an hour. And it was like still the greatest interview I've done. I ended up just formatting it as a Q&A because I didn't want anything to get lost in his words. And he was just very insightful, very pointed in his criticism. And it was something that I received a lot of like praise from other people, like my peers, which was very exciting for me. So that was definitely like peak of my written work.
So,
And last
Jazz,
but not
real
least.
quick, so you clearly pivoted. What made you go from writing a story to saying, "Oh, I just want to do this Q&A"?
His answers were just so lengthy that I didn't want to chop up the quotes into anything got misconstrued. And I was working with my editor and I told him like I already had like half the story written. And then as I got halfway through, I was like, you know what, this is way better served as a Q&A. And it's a really long piece, but I felt like it got the point across really well, that form.
Kiana, last but not least.
Well, Justin's got me because I have not won an Emmy, so
Yeah.
pretty soon, putting it out
Yes.
there.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Yeah.
But probably one of the best moments of my career was covering a Super Bowl. And then, it's my team that I work for and we're in it and we're a fourth quarter away from actually winning it, but that's another story for another time. And I think the second thing would probably be Ernie Johnson knowing who the heck I was. We were doing inside college basketball for March Madness in our studios down in Manhattan, and right across the way, Ernie was hosting with the guys, and it's the A group, and I was like peeking over the corner because I want to see all like the big names in the studio filming, and he goes, "Hey, Kiana, what's up?" And I'm like, "Me?" So I thought it was a pretty cool moment.
That's
That's
amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this amazing conversation. For those who do want to stay in contact with you or follow you on social media, would you mind sharing your social media or LinkedIn or anything in the chat so that if those would like to contact you, they could at least maybe follow your page or see your writing or work, etc. And with that, this is a wrap for our March panel. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for being a part of this. Mhm.
Hey, Bonita, one
Yes.
thing I'm gonna tell all of you, and this is something that I'm serious about. Next time you're on a Zoom, please be on camera.
Oh, well,
That's
I'm gonna say I did tell them all not to be on camera because
Oh, okay. All right.
that
Get
was
away with it.
that's
Thank you.
I wanted us to hold the stage without.
All
Yeah.
right, because I was about to get on China.
No, I strong
Oh,
armed them not to be on camera for this one.
thank you.
But thank you guys. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.